All right, here we've got a very specific video on a very specific clock. This clock is going to be moved, and so I'm going to walk you through how to unpack it once it arrives. So here is the top piece. We're going to put this on first. And if you notice, there's a nail there and a nail right there. And those are going to go into these holes on the roof. So you can see there's a few different holes there. Let's line it up with the original one, the biggest hole, and not poke any new holes in it. Line that up. There we go. So once those nails are both in there, then we will use this wire here and wrap it around the nail head. So just take it and wrap it around a couple times until it's nice and secure. Same thing on this side. You've got another one right there, and you want to wrap it around the nail head right there. So that will hold this top piece on. I'm not going to do it right now, but that's the idea. Now, next thing we want to put the pendulum on. And so this pendulum is a little bit different than modern cuckoo clocks. They're a lot easier to take on and off nowadays, but they weren't back then. So let me walk you through how to do this. Just be careful with this. You can lay it on its face, put a towel down or something like that, because we don't want to damage that top piece or anything as it's laying on its face. Flip these up and take the back off. Now this pendulum is going to go through this slot here in the bottom, and then it's got to go through the loop in this wire here. Now be careful with this wire, we don't want to bend that. If that gets bent, it can change how the clock ticks, and it means that you might have to put it off level for it to tick evenly. So just be real careful with that wire. But there's a slot in the back of that wire, and we're going to take the thin part of this rod and get it through that slot like so. Let's see if I can do it with one hand. There we go. And that's through, and now we'll slide this all the way up, and then this hook is going to hook onto this piece of wire right here. There we go. All right, so now the pendulum is on. And to adjust the pendulum, if the clock's running too fast or too slow, just slide this whole leaf up to go faster, down to go slower. I've got it pretty close, but it'll need some fine tuning. So that's that. Now you can put this back on and hang it up on the wall. Now this is an important thing to note. Here's your hanger right there that's gonna hang from. This has been installed after the fact originally. Probably would have used that hole. You could use either one, it doesn't really matter. But the most important thing is that you use a screw, not a nail. And that screw either goes into a stud or into a drywall anchor. Okay, we don't want to have a screw just going into sheetrock. You don't want a nail at all. It needs to be a screw going into a drywall anchor or into a stud. That will avoid any issues with it falling off the wall. That's a tragic end to many cuckoo clocks. So make sure it's nice and secure, especially since this one is pretty heavy because these weights are, I think, 2.5 pound weights. You got 5 pounds of weights and more for the clock. So there's a lot of weight there. Okay, so now you've got everything put together. Go ahead and hang it on the wall, on your screw that's in the wall. And once it's hanging on the wall, hang the weights onto the hooks. You notice there's 2 chains, and each chain has 2 ends. So one end of the chain is gonna look like this, and that is just a stop. That's not a hook, it's just a stop to keep the chain from coming out too far. The other end of the chain is going to look like this, and this is the hook that the weight goes on. So take that, hook it on the weight, and hang the weight. So put both weights on there, and once you have both weights on there, that'll hold the chain nice and tight so you can easily take off this piece of wire. That wire is going to keep the chains from bouncing off in transit. Last thing, once you have got all that set up, you have the weights on, you need to get the chimes, or the strike rather, to be correct with the time on the hands. So basically what's going to happen is you put those weights on there, and then you turn the hands around, and it's going to say, you know, it's pointing at 8 o'clock, but it only cuckoos, let's say 5 times, for example. Well, that means that the hands aren't pointing to the correct time that the clock thinks it is. So the way this works, to give you more background, the clock movement on the inside is a very old style, and it doesn't know what time the hands are pointing to. On new clocks, they do. On this one, it doesn't. All it knows is from 1 through 12, and it's just going to do the very next thing. So if it cuckooed 5 times, the next time it's going to cuckoo 6 times, etc., etc. It doesn't know what the hands are pointing to. So what you need to do, move the hands around until it cuckoos. If it only cuckoos once, keep going until it cuckoos twice or more. So let's say it cuckoos 4 times as you're spinning the hands around. That means the clock thinks that it's 4 o'clock. So write that down, 4 o'clock, or just make a mental note. So now, ignore what the actual time is in real life, ignore what the hands say, ignore everything else. Just remember, this clock on the inside, it thinks it's 4 o'clock. Now that we know that, take the weights off. Once you got the weights off, spin these hands around until they're pointing at 4 o'clock in this example, or whatever number of times it cuckooed. Put the weights back on, and you're good to go. That's how you get this hands sequenced back with the cuckooing. That ought to do it. Give the pendulum a little swing, and you'll be good to go. I hope this helps, and give me a call if you have any questions. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.